How much can you really focus as an ADHD person? I think the answer is that it depends on who you are, where you are in life, and what you're doing. If someone's using a lot of their executive functions on other things, attention span, and all of that kind of stuff, your ability to focus might be lower. I think it might also change a little bit through your life. I find it harder as I get older to focus, but maybe other people might find it different. So let's discuss focus from an ADHD perspective. So focus and attention span is one of the executive functions, and using your executive functions more throughout your week will tend to mean that you have less ability to focus at any one time. Neurotypical people often try and give ADHD people advice on how to get through this. So they'll say, oh, gamify it, or oh, just sit there for longer, or oh, just go and solve in this particular way that works for a neurotypical person. Just start at the start and work your way down. Doesn't work like that for ADHD people. We can't just go through a list like a neurotypical person can. We can't just use apps like Todoist in the same way as neurotypical people can. We can't just copy data from here to here like a neurotypical person can. That is literally the things that's hard for us. So focus and concentration are very much to do with our dopamine. So if something isn't novel or interesting or something we really enjoy, we'll tend to find it harder to concentrate. And we end up using willpower to some extent. Now, willpower is a limited resource, and if you overuse it, you'll start to feel a bit exhausted and burned out. So throw away all of this neurotypical advice that you've been given. They don't get it. They can't understand. Now, at times people have probably said to me things like, oh, just concentrate. Okay, how? How do I do that? If I'm struggling to concentrate, how? Give me something, give me a hand. And this really is the problem that neurotypical people don't understand. And I find it kind of a bit insulting when people say things like, just concentrate. Would we say, just try harder to walk up the stairs to someone that had one leg? Or would we say, just try harder to see distance to someone that only had one working eye? You never say that, but people say it all the time to people who are ADHD. Just concentrate, just focus. They don't realize that that's the thing that's hardest for us. We don't have that in our brains to just do what they can do. So yeah, I do sometimes find it a bit insulting when people say that to me, and it has happened at times. Just do this. I know they don't specifically mean anything by it, but it can come across as very ableist. Something else that people might ask, particularly in a work sense, is how long can you really focus without needing to take a break? And the answer is, how long is a piece of string? I'll tell you when I'm done. It comes down to so many different things. Have I already used my executive functions that day? Have I already focused too much? Am I into my willpower? If I'm into my willpower, I might only be able to focus really for a very short amount of time, maybe 5 minutes or something like that. It's going to be hard for you to get through and keep using your willpower, which is draining over time. Now, if I've just woken up and I'm feeling fresh, I've had a great sleep, and I go to my computer and I need to do something which requires some focus, that's probably where I have my maximum level. But it also depends on the type of task and how dull and uninteresting it really is for me, or how confusing it might be for me. I might find, for example, if I have to copy some data from one place to another, that 5 minutes of it and I'm kind of done before I need to take a break. But other tasks, it might be a little bit easier if they're not as uninteresting, if they're not as dull. I might be able to manage 10 or 15 or 20 minutes. So really this is a gradient or a sliding scale. What's the level of dullness of this task, this particular task, and how am I feeling in that moment? At the end of the day, if I've had a hard day doing some coaching calls and I've needed to use my attention and focus during those, which obviously I do, I might only be able to manage a couple of minutes of doing something which is really uncomfortable for me before I need to take a break. But the key difference for me now is I don't give myself a hard time about that, in the same way as a neurotypical person wouldn't give themselves a hard time about not being as creative as I am. Why is it always meant to be me that's giving myself a hard time? I just don't anymore. That is how it is for me today. And that might be different to next week, next year. So the answer really to how long can I focus realistically before needing a break is, I don't know. I'll tell you when I get there. And what's the solution to all of this? Well, the solution is simple: listening to yourself. You can manage this much today, or this much today, or this much today. It's absolutely fine. Whatever you can manage is okay. Now, you might say that if you work for other people, that you find it easier to focus and concentrate, and that may well be true. If you're an entrepreneur, you might have to be making a lot of decisions, and decisions also wear out our executive functions. So you might, as an entrepreneur, be able to focus a little bit less than if someone else is telling you what to do. But you should also be a bit cautious that you don't move from hyper focus into panic focus. So hyper focus is obviously where we're doing things that are easy for our brains. There's no friction there, it just is easy. Whereas panic focus is where we tend to use our anxiety, our cortisol, our stress hormones to get through tasks, because that can lead to a lot of exhaustion and burnout as well. I often think from a coaching perspective, well, what will happen to you if you follow this advice that I'm really giving you? Your exhaustion levels will start to reduce. You will give yourself less of a hard time, and giving yourself a hard time is one of those things that actually costs you a lot of energy. It's not a zero energy game. Giving yourself a hard time takes a lot of energy from you, a lot of emotional energy. So if you start to follow this rule that really how long you can focus is how long you can focus right now, and you need a break when you need a break, you'll tend to be more productive. You'll actually get more done, and it will be more impactful work. For example, if you're an entrepreneur and you need to be making decisions, when your brain is fresh and alive and awake, you'll make better decisions. If your brain's already exhausted, it will leap to the easiest answer, which is probably something that you've already done before, something that's within your patterns, and something that won't really lead you to a new conclusion, which might be better for you that week. So if you want to be really impactful, if you want to be making a difference in your business or your work, allowing yourself these little breaks is amazing. One of my employees once came to me and said, would I mind if he went and looked out of a window? He was a writer. Looking back, he was obviously ADHD. And I said, that's fine. If that's what you need to do, if that's productive for you, then go look out the window for 10 minutes. And he was just allowing his brain to rest, because our brains get quite hot at times. He was more productive because I allowed him to go and do that. Now, the rest of the team didn't need that, but he did. His brain was unique. He wasn't less than everyone else. He was a great writer. It's fantastic, really good at what he did. By allowing him to go and be himself, we got the best from him, and he felt good about himself. He felt validated, heard, seen, understood, and these are really important for neurodiverse people. Over time, the less you give yourself a hard time for how and who you are, the more you'll actually be productive, and that's what I find today in my businesses. Catch you in the next video.